1986, my husband and I decided to visit Bangsoom Village and to document the current status of papermaking there. On September 5, 1986, we were in Bangkok and had rented a four-wheel drive Jeep together with a driver and an interpreter. We set out for the papermaking village of Bangsoom early that morning. When Dart Hunter visited this family paper workshop, he traveled by water and arrived by boat. However, we traveled by land, located the village, but only located the paper mill after making numerous inquiries. In this sequence, we see both the papermaker's house on stilts and the nearby klong, which is the Thai name for canal, where the Niltongkum family formed the sheets of paper. Thailand is a country with numerous klongs. It was hard to believe that I was visiting the same papermaking house that Dart Hunter visited 50 years previously. Here we see a black and white photograph taken by Dart Hunter of Elaine Niltongkum, the mother of the two sisters who demonstrated papermaking for us during our visit. The two sisters, who were toddlers at the time, described to us vivid memories of Dart Hunter's. This next framed photograph in color is a portrait of the mother of the two daughters, taken during the latter years of her life. This photograph was shown to us by the two Niltongkum sisters also during our visit. Here I am sitting on the floor with Suvali Niltongkum, one of the two sisters. The fiber used by the Niltongkum family is obtained from the koi tree, botanically known as Strelbus aspera, which grows in southern Thailand and in other warm climates in Asia. We photographed this tree in Bangkok, where it was growing on the grounds of the National Library of Thailand, showing a full view of the koi tree and a close-up of a koi branch. This tree is a member of the Moraceae family, which also includes mulberry, botanically known as Brucinedia papyrifera. Koi fiber had been used for 700 years in Bangsoom Village. Since it was the fiber for making the paper for the Buddhist text, these Buddhist books began to be known as koi books. Here is a close-up of a bundle of raw koi fiber. There's another bundle of raw fiber seen on the ground. The raw fiber requires stripping. That is, the inner bark has to be separated from the outer bark. The inner bark is used to make the pulp. The outer bark is discarded. Here I am seated on the ground with one of the Niltongkum sisters, and we are discarding the outer bark, which we have stripped away from the inner bark. The inner bark is what is used to make the sheets of paper. Cooking the inner bark of the koi tree is the step that follows the fiber preparation. A metal oil drum, which had been cut in half, makes 2 containers for cooking. Here we see one cooking container. The peeled inner bark is placed in the cooker, to which both water and alkali are added. The fiber is cooked until it becomes soft and pliable. Wood is the fuel used to make the fire. After the cooking, the fiber is washed with water in order to remove unwanted materials from the solution. The cooked fiber might require 2 to 3 washings to make it clean. Beating is the step that follows cooking. The cooked and washed fiber is placed upon a hard surface and is beaten by the papermaker, who uses 2 wood mallets, one in each hand. The papermaker is seated on the ground as she performs the beating. Sheet formation is accomplished by the pouring method. In this image, I am standing beside the mold, which I saw being used in sheet formation in the Klong. The size of this mold is 20 inches by 60 inches. The mold is divided in half into 2 sections, allowing the papermaker to make 2 separate sheets of paper during 1 round of pouring. I also saw this second mold, which has the same dimension, namely 20 inches by 60 inches. But this mold is not divided and is therefore used to make a single sheet of paper. I did not see paper made with this mold during our visit. The Niltongkum papermaker is standing in the Klong alongside the bank and is in the process of making a sheet of koi paper. She is placing a mold on the surface of the water. She is now taking a ball of pulp from a pail and placing it into a second pail, to which she had added Klong water. She disperses the pulp in this pail with her hand and then pours the pulp upon the surface of the mold. She next disperses the pulp upon the mold using hand and finger movements. She raises the mold slowly, allowing water to drain out of the mold. This mold will be handed to her sister for the next step. The papermaker now begins to form a second sheet of paper. She floats the mold on the surface of the water. She removes a ball of pulp from a pail on the bank of the Klong and places it into an empty pail, to which she adds Klong water. She then breaks up the ball with her hand and disperses it. The papermaker pours the pulp upon the surface of the mold. Then she disperses the poured pulp on the mold. She then sprinkles the remaining pulp and again disperses the pulp on the mold using hand movements. She then raises the mold slowly, allowing the water to drain out, and hands the mold with the newly formed sheet of paper to her sister, who is sitting on the bank. The next step is to roll a wood dowel over the surface of the mold with a newly formed sheet of paper. Here we see a close-up of a wood dowel. Now we see the sister beginning to roll the wood dowel over the surface of the mold. This will result in squeezing more water out of the paper. It also results in making the paper more smooth, together with the elimination of air bubbles from the new sheet of paper. The papermaker is now engaged in making a third sheet of paper. We see her pouring pulp upon the mold as she stands in the Klong. She now scoops water from the Klong into the pail and sprinkles the water upon the mold. She again disperses the pulp upon the mold with her right hand. The papermaker now raises the mold and the water can be seen dripping. She hands the mold to her sister sitting on the bank of the Klong The sister rolls the wood dowel upon the mold, again to squeeze out water and to smooth out the paper. The Niltongkum sisters invited me to make a sheet of paper, an offer that I enthusiastically accepted. The sisters gave me a sarong to wear, which replaced the skirt I was originally wearing. I am in the klong, about to emulate the papermaker. I am now placing the mold, consisting of a teak frame with a cotton wove screen, in the water. The mold is floating on the water. I am now reaching for a pail containing balls of koi pulp, and I am removing one ball and placing the ball into another pail. I am adding klong water to the pail. Now I am breaking up the ball of pulp with my left hand and at the same time dispersing the fiber in the pail. Then I poured the pulp that I had dispersed in the pail upon the mold. But the klong has a current, and I had to hold the mold to keep it from floating away. I tried in vain to disperse the pulp evenly on the mold with hand movements. Also, my sarong was ballooning out, and I tried to restrain it. The challenge appeared to be greater than I anticipated. I even tried the technique of pouring pulp from the pail over the mold. It was a complete disaster. Once again I struggled to disperse with my hands the pulp poured on the mold, but I had little success. Finally, exasperated, I raised the mold out of the water, inspecting my work, and then placed the mold on the rack. I noticed the two sisters sitting on the bank of the klong, absolutely hilarious, bursting with laughter. Making paper in a klong needs a lot of practice. Drying and burnishing are next done. The molds containing the newly formed wet sheets of paper are carried to an area where sunshine and air accomplish the drying. The length of time needed for drying is therefore variable. After the sheet of paper is dry, the surface of the paper is rubbed with a smooth stone, resulting in a smooth and compact sheet. The finished paper that was shown to us consisted of black paper and off-white paper. The black paper we saw was folded in the parabolic format and was used for Buddhist manuscripts and books. I am holding a black parabolic here. Now I'm holding the black together with off-white sheet of paper folded twice. In this sequence, I am holding a black parabolic, and the Niltongkum sister is holding an off-white parabolic. We did not observe the production of the black paper, but we understand that carbon black pigment is used to produce the black paper. We learned that the two Niltongkum sisters supplied traditionally made paper to the Royal Family of Thailand. We made our second and final visit to Bangsoom Village on December 7, 1987. The Niltongkum sisters were not making paper during our visit. In fact, the sisters informed us that they were engaged in phasing out the making of koi paper and planned to cease making paper altogether in the near future. We were sad to hear this news. We sorrowfully said goodbye to the sisters and to the end of making koi paper. A few years later, during a visit to the National Library of Thailand, we noticed that there was a display of tools, artifacts, and papers donated by the Niltongkum family. We also found out that the sisters were no longer living in Bangsoom Village.